Shame dies when stories are told in safe spaces. At Sisters of the Rose, we collect stories and create those safe spaces for people to heal through the power of self-expression and truth. We've created a sanctuary for people to speak their truths and alchemize their pain into medicine.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Sisters of the Rose podcast. And we have our dear sister Sally back with us for her second edition, because she came in on our season 1. We're now on our third season that's very much focused on celebrating our elders, our unseen, unheard elders in society. So welcome back, Sally.
Thank you, Natalie. It's absolutely amazing to be here, and I'm delighted with the subject matter, of course. I like to call myself a fledgling elder because I feel like I'm, just flexing my wings and growing into eldership. I'm still on the journey, but I'm a great advocate for mature people everywhere, as you know, and I believe that we have lost eldership in Western culture, and I'm really passionate about advocating for mature people to rise up and step up and be the lighthouses that all of our society needs right now, to be the wise elders that we need in these tumultuous times.
Wow. Hallelujah to that. Hallelujah. Beautiful. Yeah, and it's so interesting because we were very much brought together by ISIS. You came on one of the first retreats, the women's retreats to Egypt. And I very much remember your brand being really born with this mature Eros, this real Magdalena, which we've often spoke about. The Magdalena was the one that was the wisdom keeper, the elder in society. And this role, I get goosebumps saying that, but this role is a role that we've lost, which is kind of an ancient, lineage holder, space holder that would actually help the whole community move through these transitions and rites of passage. So it kind of feels very beautiful that we're coming full circle now and working more deeply on this together. So if I was going to ask you, what is eldership as something, maybe as a term that you've been playing around with, as feeling your own sense of what that means in your own body and your own being, like how would you describe that? What does that term, that feeling, that label, like what does that represent for you?
That's a beautiful question. Well, for me, eldership is lived experience and embodying that lived experience. For me, it's been going on this incredible journey of life and learning, unlearning, being face down in the dirt, covered in snot and tears in the underworld many times, rising back up and learning from each experience and gathering and weaving my life skills, my wisdom, my experience together in this beautiful tapestry that I feel is like a sacred offering to my community to step into that, because there hasn't been the space for that in our culture, and it makes me really sad to see that the patriarchal systems have dismissed women, particularly older women. The systems have meant that, women in Western culture are, deemed to be on a trajectory to becoming dried up old bags, marginalized, invisibilized, parked off in the shadows with nothing really to offer. Once they've pumped out a few babies, that's, their function is done. And, we live in a youth obsessed culture that reveres and honors everything youthful. But it gets a bit lost when it moves into the mature years, and we have so much to offer. But sadly, most women, I work a lot with women, as you know, most women that I know, they really buy into this narrative that they're past it, that it's now about decline and loss. Whereas what I see is that in these extraordinary times that we live in, we need particularly turned on, embodied female leadership. We need the women to be stepping up, embodying their power, their eros, their erotic aliveness, which is like rocket fuel for all of life, So like open heart, fierce boundaries, and what I call like a soft power. So this is like a new power that moves through the body, and it's nourishing and rejuvenating and vibrant. You know, I'm 60 and I'm rising like the phoenix in the flames. I've never felt more vital and vibrant and turned on to life than I have now. And that's the energy that we need. We need to embody this energy to be these lighthouses, to carry us through, to support the younger people who fear aging and who are feeling quite lost with everything that's happening, all the challenges that are happening in the world. So how do we do that? And for me, it is about embodiment. It's about sort of doing these practices that really ignite our energy, open our hearts, so that we're resourced.
Yeah.
So that we stay healthy and nourished, and we have the energy and the capacity to step into these roles and to say, no, we're not going to be listening to that story that we're past it. We're just getting started, actually. That's how I feel. I'm just getting started.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I feel like what's coming up for me is like, it's such a sacred threshold. And like what I'm hearing from you also is like, you don't know, everyone has their own precious journey with it, you know, and like, you know, it's a very sacred transition. You know, I've been like researching a lot around now this kind of area, and it really is a very revered and kind of like, sacred threshold that, like, you know, the community gets to really be in devotion to the elders when they really meet this threshold in life. And I can't wait to actually, through the work we're going to be doing through my CIC now, which is a social enterprise, through giving actually elders a platform to actually share more of their wisdom and voice. And it just feels so right when I tune back into the work I've always done in the past around empowering youth. It's like, yes, and we deeply empower our youth through actually the stories of our elders, right? Like these sacred stories, these sacred missing pieces, these kind of like tales that we hear around the women in our family line and our gifts. And what if there was a way, like the sutras, to somehow protect these stories? And maybe that's part of kind of what this next project is to somehow just like capture some of that lost information, those lost codes that we're not capturing in the same way now.
I love that. Yeah, because for me, that's exactly it. I got goosebumps when you were speaking about that, because it is through storytelling that we hand down our legacy. And, you know, in so many indigenous cultures, they have this rich history of storytelling of, you know, the children sat at the grandmother's knee, listening to her life stories, listening to her wisdom.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. You know, so many young people are like, oh, you know, old people, you know, who wants to listen to them? And to to reignite that, like you say, it's sort of restoring harmony and right relations and natural law, LORE, within the community, of bringing back that respect for the elders, to listen to their stories, to have them as the gatekeepers of the future. I think it will bring more stability to communities and society in general. That's really the missing link in our culture, isn't it? And not having, you know, rites of passage. You know, we don't have that. So, you know, older people, like I say, they just sort of disappear into the invisible shadows. Whereas if we had a rite of passage, you know, I work a lot with menopause, and I see menopause as a metamorphosis, not a malfunction.
Yeah,
you know, that needs a rite of passage to move into that next stage. And yes, it can be uncomfortable and challenging, but, you know, it's like the butterfly, the cocoon in that soupy mess, you know, out of that soupy mess comes this incredible butterfly. And it's a mystery how that happens. And so to support elders, you know, to support mature people to go through that soupy mess with the rites of passage and the practices and the rituals, if we bring in some of that, and then to bring in the storytelling as well, it's like, wow, what a winning combo to have these rites of passage, the storytelling, and weave it all together in your beautiful project for the elders to write their stories and to be witnessed in that. You know, I'm imagining, you know, people going and doing like reading from their book in different community places, you know, have people come and listen. And it's going to be so rich. There's so much potential, isn't there?
Yeah, I can't wait. And it's just so simple when we just think about that. It's like, yeah, of course, that's really simple, that actually our elders are a massive resource in society that we're just not tapping into right now. And it feels like a very powerful foundation to offer people. And actually, it's just a deep invitation, you know, isn't it? It's like a deep invitation to those that have something to share, to give them a platform to share it. And it feels really exciting to be somehow launching this with you and like bringing you in as kind of a voice for this, because you're already really doing that work in the world. And I'm sure there's many others you can inspire through the fact that actually you've been kind of called into this very deeply. And, you know, it's naturally happening when grandparents have their children and their grandchildren. But what if we could kind of, you know, expand that ripple slightly so that actually the community would benefit more from this formal transition into rites of passage. And one thing that I'll share just for the listeners a little bit is that, as Sally mentioned, the main thing we're going to be doing is offering kind of an author program as the foundation to this. So people will come in, they'll work with us for 9 months, our team here, and they will have their book as really there. I'm like seeing like them as like the book being the sermon almost, you know, they're like there as they're like, you know, giving the voice, because that's it. It's like, that's their body of work. That's their gift. That's their offering. And if you tune into that of like, oh, wow, like if my, you know, future nieces, nephews, like, you know, cousins may find me, you know, when I've passed on, what message would it be that I would have for them? And it's like, when we tune into that, it's a very sacred gift to be able to actually leave a legacy. And that's part of it. And the book is just the first, you know, part of that. There'll be speaking, there'll be other things, delivery projects that these elders will be invited into, but that's definitely like where this begins. And so with that, I'm curious on, like, you know, and I'm just going to put you on the spot here, but if you were thinking of a title of a book or something that would actually want to come through you, like, do you have a sense for that? Do you have a sense for like what message you would be wanting to leave as your legacy?
Yeah, well, I think it probably links into my keynote speech that I often bring to when I'm speaking on stage, which, and, you know, I have got this as a bit of a working title, which is Living a Turned On Midlife.
Beautiful.
Because I feel like there's, you know, I'm busting so many myths about aging and saying, no, we're not all finished and dried up and invisibilized. We're just getting started. So, you know, living a turned on midlife for me is quite a potent title, because it will make people curious, and that's what it's about. And, you know, turned on life is, you know, people might think, oh, is that about having sex? Well, that could be part of it. That could be the cherry on the cake. But for me, you know, cultivating the eros and erotic aliveness in our bodies is what keeps us vibrant and young in our bodies. You know, not young in our mind, you know, so for me, it becomes this winning combo that we have these incredibly mature and wise and experienced minds. And then we keep the health and youthfulness of our bodies going with our erotic aliveness. And so weaving that together is like this winning combo.
Yeah.
So that we can live this next chapter to its fullest potential. You know, it's like rocket fuel for all of life when we cultivate this, and it plugs us into our intuition, our creativity, our joy, our pleasure. And so it's our greatest resource, and it's our greatest portal for health and well-being. But it's been shut down and switched off for so long. So that's again why I'm so passionate about that. That's what's going to fuel all these amazing elders to start standing up and speaking and being more visible, because they'll feel so alive and amazing.
Beautiful. And I'm curious, like, for those listening that maybe, you know, because this is literally a season we are now like launching on the podcast that's specifically focused on elders. So I'm like really hoping that our elders will kind of find this, you know, channel and find this place to be, you know, witnessed and find each other through this channel. But where would you say that your journey into like naming yourself as an elder began? Is there like a moment where you felt like, yeah, I'm really in that passage, or I'm in that initiation. Because I think this is part of it through the conversations I've been having with people. It's like, how do we know? Is that like a self-assessment? Like, when do you feel like, or when did you feel like you really took on that kind of vertical stand to be that for your community, to be willing to be seen in that? Because I think that's the piece I'm really curious about. I'm often hearing it's around the Chiron return, which is like between 49 and 52. That's where we're often doing our biggest healing with Chiron in our, wounding. But I'm curious about that because I think it's so personal. And so I'd love you to speak into that.
Yeah, that's great. For me, it was about initiation. And it wasn't pretty. For me, I feel like it really started happening big time, like 3 years ago at 57, when literally my whole life fell apart. It was the end of my 35-year marriage, the end of our co-run business. I moved countries. I'd lived in South Africa for 20 years. I moved back to England, started again in a town I'd never even visited. I mean, I was broken and face down in the dirt. And it was the biggest gift of my life because it felt like everything, all familiar structures, relationships, friendships, everything had to die. And I think there's something about an initiation into eldership where a lot of the old ways of being and doing have to die. We have to give permission for a lot of the old stuff that we've been maybe carrying for a long time to die. And I think particularly for women, we are cyclical beings. We have our menstrual cycles every month. We rebirth and we die every month as we bleed. And so there's something about the eldership initiation, which is a massive death, where are we prepared to let go of what's no longer serving us? We've probably, as women, we've been giving everything to everyone for decades. Caring for, serving others, being there for everybody else, showing up at work, juggling, if we chose to have kids, families, aging parents, demanding careers. We've given everything to everyone. So are we prepared to have a big reassessment and look at all of that and say, what is no longer serving me? What am I prepared to let go of? What must die in order for this new, more powerful one to actually emerge and be born?
Yeah,
and it's painful AF. It's not pretty, like I say, and it's often like letting go of. There's a lot of comfort in familiarity. There's a lot of comfort in old patterns, leaning back into them, and it takes a lot of courage to let go of those and step into the unknown. Because it's a mystery. We haven't had anyone role modeling this for us in the way that's needed right now, in the way that we need elders now, right? If we look at our parents' generation, we love them dearly, but there was a lot of, compromise, a bit of resentment, sliding into dirt, putting up with that kind of energy. That's not the energy that we need for our elders right now. We need them to be like fierce as fuck. And open-hearted, to not stand for the nonsense that's going on out there, but to also say, enough of that. We are going to create new ways of being and doing in the world. We are going to be the trailblazers to inspire others. The old systems are broken. They're not working. Let's not try and fix all of that shit show. Let's rather focus on creating something new and beautiful that we can all do together. And that's what you say. But, the elders in the community is creating intergenerational support and power and love and connection. That's beautiful. What it is.
Wow. Thank you for speaking to that, because I know a few times I've said to you, like, I have this big mission here in this world, and I'm very aware I'm not in that threshold. I'm actually moving into kind of this consideration of like being a mother and what that actually made into mother transition. I'm very much in that threshold, right? I'm in my own death at the moment of like my maiden, and really being in that inquiry. But I'm really someone that's kind of like building something that isn't necessarily for me right now. And so your voice around this lived experience of this threshold is really powerful. And I wonder if you can like if you were going to invite elders into this, like, what would you say? Because ultimately, like, that's the idea that people will find this space. And what would you be saying to someone that's maybe like just coming up to that threshold? Like, what would be your advice or your invitation for them?
Well, I think my invitation would be, come and join me and Natalie, come and join us, because you're so needed and you're so valuable, but you may not have received that recognition yet. And it could take some encouragement, some inner work, some building of community of eldership, the wise council working together to support each other, because we are needed, we are valued, and our voices and our stories and our life wisdom are needed now more than ever.
Yeah. Beautiful.
It's really valuable to have your experience on board, and we need to hear, the younger people need to hear our stories, because it's our stories that touch people's hearts. People want to feel more. They don't want to do more. They want to feel more, and they want to feel more connected. And weaving our stories together is what connects us in community and in an intergenerational way as well. I love hearing stories from younger people, and I want to share my stories with them so that we can inspire each other. We can lift each other up. We can do this shoulder to shoulder. This is about a spiraling and a weaving and a circling together. This is not about a top-down structure of anyone's better than. It's just we're all weaving our magic together, and that's how we're going to build robust communities and heart-led societies that will create these new ways of being. We all have gifts to offer.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that, because I think, what's coming through for me when you're speaking is like that we just need them to take one step towards us, and then we can take like 10 steps towards them and really give them a platform. But it does need an action. It does need like a yes. It does need a sacred yes, and it needs courage, right? Because often maybe there has been, I was speaking to someone about this morning that's also joining our program in September, and he was saying, that actually there's a lot of sorrow and grief underneath, of not being witnessed, because this is an ancient role that we did know on a soul level. So to live in this world as a human in these times, going into this transition can be very painful, because we know something new, like different, but we're not seeing it mirrored, and it can be really confusing actually, and it's that distortion in society. And so it can feel like a lonely place to be, and it does need courage initially for someone to step in and say, hey, like actually there is more, there is something I'm feeling beyond what I'm seeing. And with that courage, we can then meet you in that around really giving you that platform to share. And that's exactly what we're doing here through the Elder Circle, is like creating a platform for you to share your voice and your wisdom. And maybe it's someone that will share their art, maybe it's someone that will share their poetry, maybe it's someone that will share a body of work they've come through, that's come through them in this life. Like whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But actually somehow there's a deep acknowledgement that actually that gift may have not been expressed through them yet. So excited to see how it's used to unravel.
I love that, because exactly what you're saying, Natalie, there's something about being witnessed and being seen that has we've really lost that in our society and culture with older people. We have become invisible. I notice it when I'm walking around. People, because we've become so appearance based and only youthful looks are valued. We only have to look at what's happening with plastic surgery and Botox and all that to see how fearful so many women and men are of the aging process, that, once we get a few wrinkles, we're not valued anymore. It's like, and I'm calling out that bullshit. It's like, this face, the lines on my face are the map of my life. And I want that to be celebrated. I don't want that to be shut down. And I don't want to be judged on having a few wrinkles on my face, because they're part of who I am. And it's that reframing, isn't it, of that we've become invisible because it's only the outer appearance that has been looked at. And so this is a deep inner journey as well. of
Beautiful.
revealing the talents that people have inside. Like you say, they might have incredible poetry, they might have an incredible voice, they might have incredible art that just needs a little
Mm,
encouragement and an invitation to come out, and a bit of
mm,
courage to
yeah.
actually do it.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
the phrase courage is fear becoming known. And it's like one of my
Yes.
favorites because it's almost like, it's acknowledging the fear and doing it anyway, and knowing that that's like a bridge to this threshold you speak of, which is a threshold for a reason. In that it wouldn't be a
Yeah.
threshold if it wasn't actually requiring us to be very much in a potency of like life and death and an ancient,
Yeah.
rebirth ritual, which is what this is, of like, hey, if you're going to like stand in this role in your society, there are also things that are going to have to dissolve. There are also things that
Yeah.
are going to have to be let go of. And for me, this is why this is not just about the eldership project. It's more about the rites of passage work that has been lost. So whether that's like
Yes.
when a boy goes through adolescence, or when a girl goes through puberty, like these ancient rituals were built into our societies where actually there was just this ancient knowledge from an elder all the way through any kind of like key moment in life. There would be someone that had been through that, someone that had walked that way before. And I think that's just the foundation of so much of why we're struggling in these times, is because we're just not
Yes.
actually connecting the dots of having
No.
that healthy role model in our lives when we need it. And there's too much pressure on the
Yeah.
parents, because the parents weren't never meant to be that role model for like their own children, right? You were going to lean on the village for that. So
Gonna lean
we
on the
like bringing
village.
back
Yeah.
something, very
Yeah.
simple, but this is
Yeah.
just one element. And I feel like through the CIC, I want to really do this bit first, because it feels like this is where, when I tune into it, it's almost like this is where the deepest longing is. Like if I tune into the hearts of like the elders and the wisdom and the power to share there, it's like, for me, that's where like so much magic is being held.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, there isn't a map. We haven't created maps for a lot of this, or we've lost the maps. So as you say, it's like harvesting the ancient wisdom, but reweaving it in a modern context and creating a new map for these rites of passage feels really potent. How do we address what's happening in the world? What our young people are struggling with right now? How do we create maps and be those lighthouses and storytellers and inspiration for them to help them through difficult times? And it is, we are the map makers. We're creating new maps. And with my mature Eros, I've created a map through menopause, which is quite unique. But it's what's worked for me, and that's again the courage piece. And what I love as well about the courage, the French translation of courage is la rage du cœur, the raging heart.
Wow.
So for me, it's that passionate heart, that raging heart that when we can be heart led, we're unstoppable, because we are having to create new maps, because a lot of the old stuff hasn't worked and isn't working. So that takes courage, because we are just using our own magic. It's a mystery, but let's use what's worked for us and create new systems, new ways of being. And that's how we're going to build robust communities and societies together.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And if I ask you to close down your eyes and tune into like, with a world full of like elders, around the table, say they don't necessarily have seats in society right now. They're not necessarily round the table if we're thinking about the fact that they're invisible, say, and we're not fully like seeing them yet. Like, what does that world look like when they're there at the heart? Like, how does it feel different in your being when you tune into that?
Feel really calm, and my heart is singing and open, and I feel like harmony is being restored. And this piece around the right relations, the natural law, we're going back and forwards at the same time. We're going back to bring in some wisdom, but we're going forwards in a way that's needed right now. So it just feels really positive. It feels full of hope and potentiality. in a world where so many are struggling. So it's that, really. I feel that shoulder to shoulder with fellow elders gives me a lot of hope and strength and courage for the future. It's like, yeah, we can do this. We can do this.
Beautiful. And the strength and the togetherness. And thank you for being, one of these people that has been that for me, because I feel like often I'm here being given some of these, I guess, projects or like, new, opportunities, but I'm actually just receiving from those around me. And I feel like you've been playing this role for me as an elder for me for a really long time. And you've been really like activating me into this deep, wisdom that, I remember sitting in temple with you in Egypt and just feeling just this almost just this sacred transmission from you that had kind of walked part of of your path that I hadn't yet, and that was actually a very natural gift that you brought into my life very easily and naturally. And I think that's why it's very beautiful to be now having this conversation, because the irony of like how we play these roles for each other and then what else comes through us to create is because actually I've been deeply impacted by your role as a Magdalena for me in this life, in this way. And I think that's very special when we realize that, like, oh yeah, like, and how would that have been if we didn't have those role models? So thank you for stepping into the world in the way you do and sharing yourself so like almost just like, easefully with so much abundance, so much like unconditional love. That's how I feel with how you bring so much all the time. And I know it's not easy because of other things you have going on in your life right now. It's a very beautiful to see you like constantly pour into this devotion of your work. And I can't wait to work more deeply on building more infrastructure around you and around the project so that we can actually start to somehow like lean on each other a bit. That's kind of one of the biggest longings, right? So we speak about that a lot. Like we're all doing it, but like, there is still this loneliness. There is still this isolation. So I'm super excited for what will birth through us through this program. And just for those listening, the Elder Circle Rose Author program will be starting at the end of September. It'll be a 9-month program where your book will be the main transition, the rite of passage. And we will also be launching this podcast where we'll be actually having really beautiful conversations with elders from all over, from different lineages. And really, it's a space for elders to share their stories, and shame dies when stories are told in safe places. And for me, that's also where this podcast began, with that kind of quote. And it's like now we're getting deeper into some of where the real actual wisdom is, because ultimately wisdom keeper comes to mind when I think of the role of our elders. So thank you just for like embodying that role like so easily. Like it's just been such a powerful transmission to have in my life, which has been such a big part of why I'm even doing this. So I bow to you in that. Thank you, sister.
Oh, thank you, my dear sister. I so appreciate that. And just reflecting back to you, I so appreciate you in my life as well as an inspiration. I wouldn't have gone to Egypt if it hadn't been for you, that we hadn't met and dreamed up this incredible vision and just thrown ourselves into the mystery of it. I'm so grateful, because I wouldn't be sat here in this iteration if it hadn't been for that initiation with Isis in Egypt and receiving the wisdom of mature Eros as a download from her and all of it. So thank you. Deep bow to you as well. And I'm just so grateful that we get to do this together. What an honor and a pleasure.
Beautiful.
Really is.
Thank you, sister. And I'm really like trusting with this conversation that it will just find its way to the right hearts, and the right people and the right hearts in the right moment that maybe need a bit of support right now. And so if you're listening to this and you kind of feel like there's something in this to you, we will or something in this for you, we'll put a bit of info in the show notes, and also we'll share a little bit more specifically what Sally does with women, because it also might be that you want to hear more about her work and how she supports particularly women around this transition of menopause. But hopefully this can be a bit of a a step on the map for you, maybe if they're, and hopefully what I hope from these conversations is that people just like get awoken into this, like, it's like you didn't even know you needed it until you listened to something. You're like, wow, I am an elder. And like, wow, what if I actually like took that on? What could then my life look like? And that's exactly why we're doing this, because actually this is unconscious until we make it conscious. And then actually there's a whole journey to then step into that and own that. And so one thing I want to say is like, I can't wait to meet you all. Like, you know, those that are going to listen to this
exactly. It's
can't
like
wait
a reigniting of power and pleasure and passion and purpose.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what the potentiality of this project, the eldership authorship, is about: reigniting our passion for our purpose, of remembering our stories, sharing our stories, but then taking them forwards to inspire others.
Yeah.
You know, rather than parking it all off and thinking, oh, well, life's just about, you know, decline now. It's like, no, let's share our stories and see how my friend calls it QBL, qualified by life, how our qualified by love, wisdom and experience is actually like treasure. It's of great value, not only to ourselves, but to others, you know, to celebrate and remember our lives and our stories, and then to share that with others through this authorship program is really potent. And it's like, it's so many people need to hear and feel these stories right now, because it's a beacon of hope.
Yes, it is a beacon of hope. I love that.
In difficult times.
And one thing I'll also share is like, it might not even like, if people are getting hung up on like, but the book thing, it's like, for me, when I work with my book clients, it's actually nothing about the book. It's actually a catharsis to make this transition, because like you said, it's a death. And often we can't actually move into the next chapter of being unless we've had space to actually like release the past. And so actually that's what this offering is. It's a very sacred, safe ritual space with other elders where you can actually, I get goosebumps again, like go through this transition of this rite and passage together. And yeah, you have a book at the end, amazing. And it's like with my first book, like it wasn't really even about the book, you know, it was just such a deep catharsis. But then you do have a legacy. You have then something to really share and offer to the world, you know, because actually that's such a beautiful place to be. And I found out the other day, like every book we publish gets put in the National British Library. So you at any point, and that's just like anything that's published like in the world ever formally through like publication house, it just naturally gets submitted. So if you think about our ancestors in like 500 years, that information has a legacy.
Wow, that's
imagine
really...
not having to hunt for this and being like, I have a great aunt that wrote this book on X, and you could read that, receive the transmission, and feel connected to your ancestors. Like, how amazing is that?
That's true legacy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Love that.
So thank you for your time. Do you want to share, just before we head off, we've got a few more minutes, do you want to share anything about what you're actively working on right now that might be also relevant to this conversation for those listening?
Yeah, well, what I would love to share is what the vision and the mission of Mature Eros is, really, because it feels really potent in supporting. I mostly work with women, so it's mostly about supporting women who've given everything to everyone, become the next powerful version of themselves through my unique Reclaim Woman methodology. I call it Sal's greatest hits, because it's all the incredible tools and practices that have supported me to recover from childhood sexual abuse, trauma, adult depression, sexual freeze, and to reboot my whole aliveness and reclaim my embodiment and just aliveness. And I've, created this incredible map. And I feel like that's really potent to offer at this moment, because when women reclaim this energy in their body, it is like rocket fuel for all of life. And reboots our intuition, our creativity, our inner knowing, our embodied wisdom. So it activates all of that. So what I'm offering is a very important part of this eldership author program, because reigniting this is what will give women the energy and the resource to share their stories. To have the capacity to be more, to say, yes, I am enough.
Almost
I am
like the
more than
embodiment
enough.
of that, like the embodiment of the somatic work that it takes to actually hold that, right? Because you can write a book, but it's that actually holding your nervous system through that upgrade too. through embodiment.
Exactly. Yeah, because this is all about creating inner safety in the body. There's no outer safety for female bodies in the world. So mature Eros programs are all about resetting the nervous system out of stress into ease, cultivating feel-good hormone oxytocin, which is the regulating bonding hormone that communities need. So when we cultivate oxytocin in the body, it not only reduces cortisol, which most women are running on cortisol, let's face it. So it reduces cortisol naturally. And it is like this magic medicine in the body that signals to the body that it's safe to feel good.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's safe to feel good. And when our bodies feel safe to feel good, we are unstoppable. Because we build our capacity and our nervous system to hold more, to be more visible. To write our books, to launch our new business,
I love that.
To support others.
There's such a nice link between that, isn't there? Like the natural piece around what you do in the world and how you're already doing it, and offering that segue for people. Thank you. So we'll have some information too on Sally's programs in the show notes, as well as some stuff on Author Program and the Elder Circle. And it's going to be around, end of September that we'll be getting going. Sally will be also in it because she'll also be writing her book with you all, which is super exciting. So for now, we'll leave the conversation there. We're on 40 minutes. I love that. It's could literally speak all day, but there'll be many more of these conversations. And for us, this just really marks the beginning of this new season of acknowledging elders. And if you know anyone that actually would love to speak on this podcast and share their wisdom and medicine, please just get in touch, because we really are now in this place of being a place to hold, like an anchor point for more of the people in this transition. So really, really thanking you for your time, Sister Sally. And for those listening, we'll be back with you soon.